Good evening. I'm Christian Halstead, and here are the top 3 news stories of today from a both sides perspective. Starting with President Trump announcing today that he is withdrawing Elise Stefanik's nomination to be ambassador to the UN. Elise is currently a congresswoman from New York, and because the Republicans have a slim 218 to 213 majority, Trump said in a statement, quote, "As we advance our America First agenda, it is essential that we maintain every Republican seat in Congress." It's important to note that there are also 2 special elections in Florida next week to fill the seats of Matt Gaetz and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. These are both Republican strongholds, which should increase their majority, but Democrats view Trump's withdrawal of Elise Stefanik today as a sign of fear that the Democrats may pull off an upset in Florida or that some congressional Republicans may start turning against the Trump agenda. It is important to realize this 5-seat Republican majority is the slimmest House majority in 94 years, since 1931. So it is likely Trump is waking up to the reality that he really does need every Republican vote he can get. In other news, the markets were down across the board today as investors continue to digest the new 25% tariff on cars and car parts that Trump announced yesterday. But the United Auto Worker Union, who endorsed Kamala Harris in 2024, released a statement today praising the tariffs.
Look, we are ecstatic to see an administration finally address the unfair trade laws in this country. These laws have destroyed the American working class. They've destroyed communities in this country and virtually every state for decades.
On the other hand, the leader of the European Commission, which is basically the executive branch of the European Union, was much less ecstatic about these tariffs. But it is important to realize that the U.S. currently has the lowest tariff rate among G20 countries. But obviously, that is all destined to change on April 2nd, which Trump is calling Liberation Day, where he's promising a slew of new reciprocal tariffs. This has world leaders in dismay, specifically the new Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who said today the U.S. is no longer a reliable trading partner. This is an issue, especially for Canada, as roughly 22% of the Canadian GDP is dependent on exports to the U.S., while only 1.5% of the U.S. economy is exports to Canada. So Americans should expect prices in the short term to rise in certain sectors, but the hope is in the long term, companies will start building in America again. But there is one issue with this. Mexico, the average factory worker, for instance, makes about $5 an hour, while it is around $30 an hour in America. So even if manufacturing does come home, one should still expect higher prices, as Trump is essentially ending the ability of companies to use slave-like labor in third world nations to produce our nation's products. And like most things in life, there's pros and cons to this. Prices with tariffs will theoretically go up, but wages and the middle class should also theoretically grow. We will see. And finally, our third story of the day is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Trump's head of the HHS, announced today he will be firing 10,000 employees across the nation's health agencies, which comes on top of the 10,000 employees who have voluntarily left in the last couple months, which shrinks the HHS's workforce from 82,000 to 62,000. RFK claims this will streamline health services by cutting worthless administrators, but increasing scientists. This will consolidate the amount of HHS divisions from 28 to 15, including a new administration for a healthy America, and will reduce regional offices from 10 to 5. These cuts will save the American taxpayer $1.8 billion a year, and RFK announced the new mission saying this:
"Streamlining HHS is part of a shift to new priorities, especially ending the chronic disease epidemic with clean water, safe food, effective medicine, good science, radical transparency, and a healthy environment." I think most Americans would agree with me that throwing more money at healthcare isn't going to solve the problem, or would have solved it already.
RFK also cited facts about how America ranks last in health among the developed world, despite us spending 2 to 3 times more per capita on health. Critics, including the director of food policy at Consumer Reports, say these staff cuts endanger public health and food safety, especially among a measles outbreak. And the American Cancer Society notes how cancer rates are down 34% over the past 2 decades, saving 4.5 million lives, which is directly linked to research done by HHS agencies. Democrats as a whole are calling these cuts insane and overdone. We will all bear witness to the next 4 years on how these cuts turn out, and if RFK can truly produce better health outcomes with a 20% reduction in force. That's all I have for you guys today. I'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. with the both sides news of the day. If you enjoyed this, please be one of my first subscribers. It really helps this video get out to more people. Thank you, and have a great night.